You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph, and today is the eve of 49ers versus Vikings joint practices for the next 2 days. I'm going to be out there those next two practices in Minnesota. I leave bright and early, actually before the sun even comes out. I will hopefully be on a plane on my way to Minnesota. I got to wake up at like 3 a.m. tonight. I'm not excited, but I am excited for this matchup we're about to see this week against the 49ers and the Vikings. What's going on? Shout out to everyone joining. And as always, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm going to be doing live streams after every practice while I'm in Minnesota. So make sure you're subscribed. Stay up to date with all the content. And make sure you like this video. Let's try to get this to 15 likes. And while you're at it, I got a question for all you guys. What matchups are you guys going to be looking for in Minnesota? Who are you most excited to see? What's going on, Melissa? Who are you guys most excited to see the 49ers match up with in Minnesota? I will tell you who I'm excited to see very shortly. You guys will have to wait for my answer. Really quickly, let's go over some news because I haven't talked to you guys in a while, at least from the 49 Carats podcast. So really quickly, tight end Charlie Warner, he was activated from the PUP list. That's another tight end up in the mix there. I've been talking about Tyler Kroft and all that, and I like Tyler Kroft, but Charlie Warner, does he get priority over Tyler Kroft? Yeah, probably. I mean, he's been part of this team longer, and they seem to like what they have in Warner, so he probably slips right in back to the tight end 2 spot. You got Tyler Kroft right below that. Other injury news, I mean, you guys have already heard. Jimmy Ward, he is doubtful for week 1 with his hamstring injury. This one's a tough blow. I mean, there's been a lot of what has seemed like small injuries and also some soft tissue injuries leading up to week 1. And this is the first one that is actually makes a player in doubt of playing in week 1. So this is officially not good. No bueno. Jimmy Ward with that hamstring injury. And as I mentioned, soft tissue. This seems to be a trend going on with the 49ers right now, and that is not a good trend that you want to have, especially when it comes to the fact that, this season is about to get started. You don't want your guys missing some time, especially we heard that Jimmy Ward's hamstring injury is significant. And that is also not good because that means that I don't know. There's some chance that he can re-aggravate his hamstring going into the season. You know what? I just realized my mic is not plugged in, but you guys can still hear me because it's coming from my laptop speakers. Rookie mistake. I've been having a lot of audio issues lately. But anyway, I'm taking my mic with me to Minnesota, so that's why I was somewhat getting my setup ready to take with me on the road. But anyway, a lot of you guys I've seen a lot of 49er fans on Twitter saying, well, Jesse Bates is out there, let's try to pick up him, or the Broncos just released a safety, Jamar Johnson, let's try to get him. I would say, if the 49ers pick up someone, honestly, I don't think they do, but if they do, Jamar Johnson is not a bad option. I would probably go with him over Jesse Bates. You just need depth more than anything. You don't need someone who's going to, take Jimmy Ward snaps right away. They have Tarvarius Moore for that, someone who they're also really excited for in the safety group. So Tarvarius Moore is going to get that opportunity to step up and get those extra snaps. And I don't think that's completely a bad thing. Jamar Johnson would be intriguing, though, because the 49ers play the Broncos in week 3. So any insight he can give us into, what they're running over there would be nice and welcome. But at the end of the day, I think they stand pat. I don't think they sign anyone at safety, especially because they're trying to get to roster cut downs. And we saw the first bit of roster cuts happening. Darqueze Dennard was one of the first shoes to drop. Nickel cornerback. Man, he was starting all of training camp, by the way, as a starting nickel. So that was kind of a surprise to everyone. But at the same time, after we saw what Samuel Womack did in that game against the Packers, they must have really liked what they saw. And I don't blame them. I liked what I saw too out of Samuel Womack. So they are ready to give him an increased workload, not just an increased workload, but a starting role on this team as a slot corner. So that's very exciting. Unfortunately for Darqueze Dennard, it means he got released. So that was one. And then defensive tackle Robert Kimdichie, who the 49ers signed, after training camp had started. He always had an uphill battle to, make it on this team. Though I do appreciate that during all of the training camp practices, he was like the number one hype man. He, always had a lot of great energy and, positivity. You can tell he really enjoyed being, on the team, even it being as short as it was. So those two guys are veterans, and the fact that they were released, it gives them the opportunity to latch on to another team. They have an opportunity to another team to pick them up. So in a way, you guys might be thinking, well, I'm sure there were other players that were not as good as those two guys that they could have cut instead. The 49ers doing these guys a solid by cutting them early, letting them, look for other teams to go to, maybe. So in addition to those two guys, the 49ers also waived Josh Hokett, fullback. You guys a lot of people are fans of Josh Hokett because, Fresno State and whatnot. Honestly, don't be sad that he was waived. I think there's a really good chance that he ends up on the practice squad as he has been these last couple years. So I think that there's a spot for him there, as well as wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson. He's now been with the team a couple years now as well. So there is an opportunity for him to latch on to the practice squad potentially. And they also waived defensive lineman Tomasi Lalau. I think that's how you say his last name, Lalau. But yeah, so again, first shoe to drop in these roster cuts. There are going to be few more to come, but for now, 49ers probably stand pat until after this preseason game against the Vikings. So let's go ahead and talk about this practice, these next 2 days in Minnesota for the 49ers. Practice is going to be from 10 to noon in, Minnesota time, whatever that is. Is that Eastern time technically? No, Central, right? Minnesota? I think so. I don't know. Doesn't matter. 10 to 12 p.m. And all right, I'll tell you who I'm most excited to see, the matchup I'm most looking forward to. It is actually okay. I kind of have two. So one is would have been Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley going against Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Charvarius Ward, he's still working back from his injury, so I'm not completely sure if he's going to be, practicing at all in Minnesota. A few other guys as well remain out: Elijah Mitchell, Danny Gray, and Jeff Wilson Jr. Eric Armstead, it seems, has been ramping up to returning, but I'm not entirely sure if we'll see Eric Armstead out there either. It's really just a matter of, their rehab and how their injuries are going, and whether the 49ers even want to risk injury to some of these guys before week 1, right? A lot of injuries in the secondary already. So I don't know. Maybe they'll hold Charvarius Ward a little longer. Emmanuel Mosley, it sounds like he has a chance to return within these next 2 days. So we'll see what happens there, because I would love to see Ward, Mosley going against Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Need to see it. Get your popcorn ready. And I've also been hearing that KJ Osborne has been doing pretty well for the Vikings. So I think the secondary group is going to have a challenge all around with these Minnesota receivers. And it'll be a good test for this group, no doubt. These young corners are going to have to step up, especially guys like Ambry Thomas, Diamador Lenore, even Samuel Womack. I mean, we're very excited about him. As I mentioned, he seems to be the starting nickel at this point, but he's going to get tested out there too. The Vikings like to put Justin Jefferson in the slot, Thielen as well. So they're going to give the 49ers some different looks. And Samuel Womack, right off the bat, here you go, buddy. You are now the starting nickel. Now go and guard Justin Jefferson. That's quite the task for the rookie, but I'm excited to see how he does. And it doesn't seem like the lights are too bright for him. So I think this will be a very, very entertaining, couple of days for the defense. I'm also excited to see Nick Bosa going against second-year Vikings left tackle Christian Darrisaw. From what I've seen, like reports from Vikings camp, is that Darrisaw has looked great, but Nick Bosa is Nick Bosa. So he's going to put Darrisaw to the test, no doubt. Definitely excited to see what this defensive line can do against the Vikings front. The one question I have, though, Kirk Cousins, he was out due to COVID. He had COVID. That was a few days ago. Haven't heard anything about him being cleared. So I don't know if he's going to be cleared by tomorrow. I hope he will be, because that'll just, make the practice more entertaining. You want to see the Vikings at full squad, and just so you get a good idea of, the 49ers get a good test, a good challenge. And I feel like these practices might matter a little bit more than the game, because, as we know, Trey Lance is not going to start or even play in this next preseason game against the Vikings. So all eyes are going to be on this practice and how he does there. We know that Trey Lance at times has struggled against the 49ers defense. What will he do going against another defense that, doesn't know his weaknesses as much as the 49ers defense might know? I mean, we did hear last practice that the 49ers had, Trey Lance had a really solid day. He was 11-14, and it sounded like the Trey Lance, Deebo Samuel connection was starting to flourish. We love to see that, especially going into these next 2 days of practice against the Vikings. I think it's important for those guys' chemistry to be on point, and communication to really be on point, because the biggest thing between Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel, in camp, when Deebo Samuel returned after he got his extension, was the fact that they weren't really always on the same page, it seemed like. So having communication down before these practices in Minnesota, that's going to be a big deal in these next 2 days. And again, Trey Lance, he's been up and down going against the 49ers. I want to see him string together 2 good days against the Vikings, right? That's what we all want to see. I think there's an opportunity for that. It'll be interesting. Word on the street is Jordan Hicks, the linebacker for the Vikings. He's been doing really well in camp, and it'll be interesting to see how Trey Lance does against the linebacker core. I mentioned earlier, is my audio cutting in and out? Oh, Jesus. Is it really bad? I tried to plug in my mic. You tell me. Should I plug in my mic really quick? Let me see. I could probably do it. Bear with me. Thank you, Melissa, for letting me know. All right. I plugged in my mic. Check. Can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up or give me a yes if you hear me with my mic. Is the audio better? Appreciate any comments to let me know. Can you guys hear me? Any of you guys hear me out there? All right, I'm gonna just keep talking. Assume it's okay. But if you can hear me, I would appreciate. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go, Mariah. Yup. Okay, thank you guys. All right, so as I was saying, yeah, this linebacker group for the Vikings is pretty solid, and Trey Lance has at times struggled seeing the underneath defenders. Fred Warner has 2 interceptions in camp thrown by Trey Lance. So I'm interested to see how Trey Lance does against this linebacker group. I mean, let's face it, they might not be as good as the 49ers, Fred Warner and all that, but still, it's a new face. They all present different challenges. And this offensive line, I think, is going to be tested as well with Daniel Hunter and Zadarius Smith. And, we can assume that Trent Williams is going to hold up his end. Mike McGlinchey, I'm not 100% sure if he's going to practice. He did get some injections in his knee. But if it's McKivitz out there starting, he's going to be, somewhat challenged out there between Daniel Hunter and Zadarius Smith. So it'll be interesting to see how the offensive line shakes out in these next 2 practices. And as part of that, how Trey Lance will work with that pressure. We've been pleased with how he's done with pressure so far, keeping his eyes upfield, moving around in the pocket. Want to see more of it. Want it to lead to checkdowns. Want it to lead to, off-schedule plays. Things like that. Those are things I'm going to be looking out for because you can't expect in football things to be perfect all the time. Sometimes your offensive line is going to allow some pressures, and it's the quarterback's job to be able to adjust to that pressure and still get a play off, still get some positive yardage. So that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on in these practices. I'm also curious to know if the 49ers will use Deebo Samuel in a wide back role at all during these 2 practices. Over the weekend, 49ers had a practice. It was close to fans, obviously, so it was just like, beat reporters talking about it. They saw a lot of Deebo in the backfield. So who knows? Maybe they're getting prepared to use some of that in Minnesota, and that would be definitely an interesting wrinkle that I think would honestly help Trey Lance out. I mean, just having that extra threat is going to give the defense some pause, and just that pause alone can give Trey Lance a little more time to work with and make something happen. Every second, every millisecond counts. So who knows? I'm also wondering if they're going to have Trey Lance run some, zone read or things like that. Again, just to keep the defense honest. Because as we get closer to the season in week 1, I fully expect the 49ers to start, working some of that in. Again, keeping the defense honest. Hey, quick question, you guys. Do you think we see a fight in this, in these next 2 practices? I wonder if I can run a poll. I don't know if I figured out how to do that yet. Let me go on my YouTube really quick and see if I can figure out how to do a poll. Because I'd love to ask you guys yep, I could do it. All right. Do we see a fight between 49ers and Vikings in practice? All right. There we go. Boom. Poll sent. Can you guys see it? I hope you guys can see it because I'd love to know what you think. Here's what I think. I think there will be a fight. And honestly, a fight would be kind of cool. I mean, from an entertainment standpoint. Who I think may fight, if I had to guess, my money would be on Brandon Ayuk and Patrick Peterson. That's what I think. And, okay, Melissa said no. But here's my reasoning. One, the 49ers were fighting each other not too long ago due to hard hits and things like that. Both of these teams have been ready to just start playing other people. And, they got the first preseason game out of their system. But, when you're going to be seeing another team, not just once, but twice, 2 days in a row, there's opportunity for some heated moments there, heated exchanges. One hard hit can lead to a fight. A few words said here and there, some shit talking could lead to a fight. Melissa says Fred Warner and Dalvin Cook could be a fight. Dalvin Cook, yeah. These Vikings running backs, that's not something I talked about, but they are also quite the challenge for this defense. But I'm not worried about that because historically, this 49ers defense has been able to handle the run, and they're really great at stopping the run at the line. And so I'm not too worried about these Vikings running backs, however good they may be. Now, out of the backfield, if they're, making catches, that could add another element. And I know the Vikings do that quite a bit. So that's something I'll definitely keep an eye on, how they work through that. And Melissa, I think you mentioned earlier something about, Talanoa Hufanga going up against Justin Jefferson. Yeah, Hufanga, I think, is going to be tested in coverage quite a bit in these next two practices. And that's definitely something to keep an eye on, right? Because a lot of people say, Hufanga in coverage, that's not his strength. His strength is closer to the line when he can just make plays close to the line of scrimmage. He can run sideline to sideline. He's that kind of guy. But when he's asked to cover, things get a little more shaky for him. So I agree. I think this is going to be a matchup to watch. I'm going to guess and just give the edge to Justin Jefferson. Guys, Jefferson is probably already one of the best wide receivers in the league already in his young career. And I think he'll just continue to get better. So yes, I think it's going to be the Justin Jefferson show these next two practices, and hopefully this defense is ready for it. If anything, I want to see this defensive line really make it tough for, those plays to get off, because that's really where everything starts, at the defensive line. Again, if it's not going to be Kirk Cousins out there, I think it'll be easier for them, but we just never know. And Melissa also says Oren Burks covering Alexander Madison and Dalvin Cook. He mega impressed me. Yeah, Oren Burks. And like I said, these Vikings running backs, they're very good at receiving as well. So yes, that'll definitely be tough for these linebackers. They're going to be tested. But I'm excited for the challenge. Just promise me, guys, whatever happens out there, just remember it's preseason. Just remember, none of this counts until week 1. And there's a lot that could, happen between now and then. It may not seem like it, but a lot can happen. A lot can be learned in this small period of time. So if you hear about some mistakes out there, if you hear about a bad Trey Lance day, bad interception, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. So, yeah, just remember to keep that in mind. This is a good challenge for everyone, and that's part of the reason why teams like to have these joint practices. It gets teams the chance to, start getting those competitive juices flowing before week 1, before these preseason games. So exciting stuff all around. Well, guys, I think I pretty much covered most of the things that I'm going to be watching, but I'm going to keep my eye on everything as much as I can. I even got binoculars for this time around. Like, nothing's going to get past me, So, yeah, Melissa says no helmet punching. Got it, Vikings? No helmet punching. And, at the end of the day, all we can hope for is that, both sides are healthy at the end of this week. No new injuries. We'd love to hear no new injuries. You know, after this preseason game is done. So with that, I'm gonna end this episode. I need to get to bed because I gotta wake up at like 3 a.m. To head to Minnesota. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow after practice. You guys can follow me on Twitter for all the real-time coverage. I'll be tweeting, live tweeting the practice pretty much. And then I'll be live on my channel. So lastly, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like this video if you have not already, and have a good rest of your night. Peace.